Asia water. Asia water regional.
Selamat sejahtera and good morning, and welcome back to our second plenary session. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Regional Water Talks, an exclusive plenary session with Dr. Tan Yu Chong, Chief Academic Advisor for Malaysia-China Business Council, MCBC, and Senior Advisor for Salkan Engineering Berhad. I'm Fazar, and I'm your MC for today. Before we start this session, there are a few rules that we must adhere. If you have any question, please wait for the Q&A session or do list them down at the Q&A chat box. All microphones and webcam of attendees has been disabled throughout the session. If there is any internet disruption during this session, kindly be patient and try to sign in again. Without further ado, let's welcome our moderator, Dr. IRTS Haji Muhammad Asari Daud, the President of Malaysian Water Association in this session. With that, Dr. Asari, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Fazar. I hope you're seeing me on the screen at the moment. So I would like to thank the organizer for organizing this and having this opportunity for me to moderate the session. The Asia Water Regional Talk 2021 continues. So I have been fortunate to be in few sessions before. The recent, the just completed session, the session on planetary health has gone into something quite related to the topic that you are going to talk in this plenary, public-private partnership for water infrastructure. We are fortunate today to have our very eminent speaker. He was actually previously with the government until his retirement. So probably I would give a short introduction of our speaker. He is adjunct professor, Dr. Tan Yu Chong. Dr. Tan is currently the Chief Economic Advisor of the Malaysia-China Business Council, and also Senior Advisor of the Salkan Berhad. And he is also appointed as adjunct professor in Asia University, and also he is industry Advisory Panel of Xiamen University, Malaysia. Dr. Tan, I think he was actually rather close with me when he was in the Ministry of Qatar. Had several key positions at the ministry and sectoral agency. He was the Secretary General of the Ministry of Primary Industries, the Secretary General of the Ministry of Water, Land and Natural Resources, and the Deputy Secretary General of the Ministry of Energy, Green Tech and Water. And he was also the Deputy Director General of the Public and Private Partnership Unit, that is UCAS, of the Prime Minister's Department. He had written a lot of papers pertaining to the government policy. And of course, the subject he is going to deliver today is something very close to him, of course, during the UCAS time. And now, of course, his involvement with the Malaysia-Chinese Business Council. He was also the chairman. Hello? Okay, shall I continue? He was previously chairman of the Forest Research Institute of Malaysia, FRIM, Commissioner of Water, National Water Services Commission, SPAN, Board of Director of PAAP, National Water Assets Corporation, and also the Advisory Committee of International Association of Coastal Reservoir Research. I think that is a very, we call that very eminent involvement, and also has been contributing a lot to the nation's development of the water industry. And today, Dr. Tan will be speaking on public-private partnership for the water sector. I think this is going to be something interesting, continuing from what we have heard earlier this morning about financing, alternative financing for water supply.
Hello, dengar, Haji?
Yeah, I can hear. But can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, so I'm now about to pass it over to Dr. Tan. So
Hello?
shall I? Are you ready, Dato'? Do you hear me? Hello? Okay, Dato'. Tak ada suara. Yeah, I hear everyone. I'm not.
We can hear.
Okay, now I'm passing it over to Dr. Tan because I have made the introduction. Are you ready, Dr. Tan?
Tadi macam host dia unmute.
So should I do another introduction or I think it's done?
I think it's done.
It's done. I have made the introduction of Dr. Tan just now. So I hope now is the time for you to take the stage and probably present your speech. I think I hope I'm talking to the rest of the audience. Maybe admin, is everything okay, admin?
Yes, everything's
okay.
We can hear
Everything
you.
is okay. Then so now I would like to call upon Dr. Tan Yu Chong to present his speech. The floor is yours, Dato'.
Thank you, Dr. Asari, President of MWA, moderator of the session for this morning, for your kind introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, participants of the Regional Water Talks. The topic of my presentation is post-pandemic public-private partnership for water infrastructures. I would like to thank Informa Market, the organizer of the event, for inviting me to share my experience and expertise in PPP. Not only for water, actually, my PPP scope is cover all other infrastructure. As for today's event, my presentation will be divided into 3 parts. Next slide, please. So the first part, I will focus on the concept and model of PPP and structure and policy of PPP and achievement of PPP. This is on the policy and how we come up the proposal from the PPP perspective, from conceptual to policy, and from policy turn into implementation and project monitoring. And second part, with regards to PPP for water infrastructure, that is in water industry context. I will share my experience as well as the ex-secgen of Ministry of Water a couple of years ago. And the last is related to my present position with Celcon. So part 3 is with regard to Celcon investment in PPP. I choose Celcon as my case study and how to apply the PPP model. Next slide. Next. PPP concept. One of area where private sector engaging actively with public sector is PPP is not an alien terms to Malaysia, as it has played a very significant role in the national growth and economic development since early 1950. Regardless of the variations and kinds of project, a PPP project will be in most cases comprises of 3 main features: risk transfer, long-term contract, and partnership agreement. So in providing public infrastructure such as highways, seaport, this is providing public infrastructure, highway, seaport, airport, and many other facilities. Especially now for today's discussion, I will relate to the water sector industry. And the benefit for PPP mainly on the risk sharing and risk sharing responsibility from private, and also especially we transfer the risk to the private sector. And the reason for partnerships, we are able to come up with the output or the outcome, meaning that the project with focus on the more efficient design, enhanced services, and long-term contract here. As I mentioned earlier, when it comes to policy, turn into contract. So for PPP project in Malaysia context, it's about more the contract tenure is more than 7 years, and also the contract project cost is more than 25 million. Next slide. So this is the macro policy. We based on 10 Malaysia plan and also 11 Malaysia plan. So we focus and set the target for how to execute the PPP project via the 5 years plan. Then to come up with the infrastructure and facilities projects for the public. The main principle here is to improve efficiencies and productivity, development and growth, and promote private investment and ease government burden. So like now, again, is a post-pandemic, the economic recovery, we need more fund. If just rely on the government fund is very limited. So, but the needs of the rakyat and to execute or to implement more projects we need the participation from the private sector. And this is, again, the ultimate aim is to economic transformation. In the context now is our economic recovery post-pandemic. Next slide. So there are three major components here: public, private, and partnership. What does it mean by public here? So normally for public project, we use a development budget, government fund every year provided by EPU. That is the mechanism. Then the ministry will ask for EPU budget for DE and come up with all the need statement to develop the project. And whereas private here referring to finance through private funding initiative, and all responsibilities are given to the private sector, and risk, especially the risk. So government will transfer the risk, the project risk, the construction risk, the financing risk, all the related risk assessed by the bank. So all are here. And the output is partnership. This partnership through the government initiative come up with the concession agreement normally. So and translate to the project. Next slide. Okay, this is the key of PPP. So people are confusing. Many people are confusing. Sometimes they talk about PFI. Actually, PFI is just part of PPP. So in PFI here, we have build, lease, transfer, build, lease, maintain, transfer, build, lease, maintain, operate, transfer. So what are the difference between PFI and privatization? So you look at the privatization here. We have a build, operate, transfer. For example, highway project. So it's a build, operate, transfer model. The company built the highway. For example, the Plus Highway, build and operate the highway over the periods of 30 years, then extended to another 20 years. So and the end of the concession, the project will be transferred back to the government. And what's the difference between privatization and PFI here? You see, here there is a user-paid principle. Privatization is the user-paid principle. PFI is the government-paid principle. So, for example, build, lease, transfer. One of the good model I want to share is a Putrajaya offices. So, built by Putrajaya Holding and leased by the government. And at the end of the concession, will transfer back to the government. So, what in return, government will pay the lease renter to Putrajaya Holding. Next slide. Structure and policy of PPP. Next slide. Okay, these are the main mechanisms. When a project proponent submit a proposal to UCAS, a central agency in charge of a PPP project. So UCAS will evaluate the project proposal and table to various committee. Later on, I will explain more detail. This SPV formed by the project proponent will carry out the duties. It depends on what model they use, like BOT just now. So BOT will mainly focus on construction and contractor. At the same time, operation and maintenance together. That is the model, and finance via the financing through commercial bank or with their own equity plus commercial financing and plus other source of funds. And the output here is to the customer. Next slide. This is the planning and the policy process. UCAS, I'm sure every one of you aware what is UCAS. UCAS is Public-Private Partnership unit of Prime Minister Department. I was the Deputy Director General of UCAS. I have concluded more than 100 agreements in UCAS, many projects and many methods, and also now all are on the ground. And I know that's why this thing I'd like to share my experience to all the audience, how to come up with a good PPP model, because when you determine the wrong model, then at the end of the day, you create unbankable project, or the viabilities of the project may be questionable. So there are two initiatives here. One is from the private sector initiative, meaning that the private company, in this case the water company, can give the proposal to UCAS to be evaluated. But later on, I will share some of the way forward, how to simplify it with another mechanism. And another initiative proposed by the government, for example, the state government or the ministry, other ministry, like Ministry of Agriculture, even CASA also can propose a project. Those days, I received many projects, especially land swap project. Land swap project from CASA submitted to UCAS for evaluation and to come up with the land swap agreement, and how the land swap agreement will be benefit the water industry. So some of the project now, one of the project now is a Ponot. It's a land swap project. So the STP land turned into mixed development, and there are 3 milestones in return need to be carried out by the concession company, and need to go through, when the proposal submitted to UCAS, then need to go through the evaluation process via the technical committee and also the financial committee, and bring it to the JCAS meeting, the committee checked by the Director General of UCAS, and after all this evaluation will be tabled to cabinet for final approval. But not only one process, or not only one time, so maybe more than one times, normally more than one times, maybe 2 times or 3 times. So next. So these are the framework. So from the technical committee, there is also they call it Jawatan Kuasa Pemandu Steering Committee to evaluate all the project proposal, then table to the JCAS and table to the cabinet for the approval. Some countries they use the act to govern the PPP project. I used to involve in the ASEAN PPP network. So we share some of the model, and that there is a pro and con. Why some country not sent to submit the proposal to cabinet, they just at their ministry level can approve, but all this governed by the specific act. But in Malaysia, we don't formulate the act. We everything tabled to the cabinet for approval. That is good because we can cut short the red tapes and more flexible. Next slide. Achievement of PPP. So over a period from 1983 to 2017, so there are there are 754 projects implemented and create a lot of job opportunities to our society. And also, one more thing is the saving here, the capital expenditure. Like I mentioned just now, if government have limited resources, every project we can't get the DE easily, development expenditure. So this is one of the alternatives to create a funding for project implementation. Next. So critical success factor for our PPP. So we have a sound policy, like just now the processes. So to formulate a policy, to make sure we must benefit to the rakyat and to the relevant stakeholder. And PPP structure is very important to facilitate the PPP transaction. If we choose the wrong model, then the outcome, the output and outcome will be different. So and responsible sponsor, we need more private company to get involved, and clarity of the project formulation and documentation. Again, this project needs is very important. For example, you want to kickstart the project, water reclamation. So this Shah Alam, I was told Shah Alam started last year, IWK and Selangor. So JV with one this water reclamation project in Shah Alam. So the need statement must be very clear, and all the documentation, especially the contract, so must be clearly stated. The salient terms. So normally, first thing we focus on the salient terms. So how important of the salient terms for the project viability and project bankability, and the termination clause. Termination clause, default by the company, default by the government, why default, and all the things need to take into consideration. And cross-project monitoring by the ministry agency and financial market readiness to cater needs for long-term project financing. So this is another crucial part. So to finance project more than 15 years, so the bank or the financial institution need more time to evaluate the risk factor and also the payback abilities and the viabilities of the project. Next slide. PPP for water project. How come my slide? Yeah, few slide missing. Secretariat, informa. There are few slides missing there.
Hello, Datuk Tan. We received this slide this morning by Miss Anita, and we did not change anything.
Never mind. So
Okay.
I can share more on PPP now. Don't worry.
All right, Datuk Tan.
Especially the differences between a PPP and normal procurement, the conventional public procurement. So conventional procurement here, we refer to using development expenditure. And normally, I think most of the project incurred additional cost overrun. Not only that, this extension of time. So these two main weaknesses, I say it's a weaknesses when carry out a project. I always argue with Mandu. They said PPP is a very costly and compared with conventional. Then my point given to them, are you consider these two factors, cost overrun and also extension of time? So all in, you factor in is dollar and cent, and at the end, the project output and the service delivery to the customer is not there. So whereas for PPP procurement, payment based on usage, payment based on availability. So this thing, either you use PFI model or you use privatization model. So we can see this is the difference. No cost overrun and no this one extension of time. Of course now, because of pandemic, this COVID, so I was informed you can't give a few months this extension for the concession due to this unforeseen circumstances. Okay. Mention about the PPP evolution in Malaysia. There's a slide, I think PPP evolution, page 7, Secretary. Yes, this is very important. I would like to share our evolution in Malaysia PPP. So we started Malaysia Incorporated policy. So all these TNB, those days Lembaga Elektrik Malaysia Negara, so corporatized and privatized, and privatization master plan initiated in 1991. And again, the evolution. You see now, we started the bus highway in early 1980. Now is considered third generation, second or third generation, depends on type of project. Because some they need extension of time, so become from first generation to second generation, and these evolving processes, we try to, my experience, just to share my experience, I always mention at that particular time, for example, in 1985 or 83, a committee make the decision to execute a project. But after 20 years down the line, then we find that how come the agreement so many weaknesses? But that time, due to the limited resources and limited information, and that pioneer group, in fact, have done the best for the country. So, after the evolving 20 years, we can see the progress and how to improve the PPP model over the periods of now is more than 38 years in Malaysia. So then we are able to now come up with many models, like I mentioned just now, the PPP model consists of privatization and also PFI. And UCAS established in 2009 and come out with all the guidelines. In 2010, with a facilitation fund, is a very important mechanism to become a tipping point to kickstart a project, especially the so-called the mixed development project, the new concept, the greenfield project. So it's very important to bridge the viability gap between the project financing and project viability. So now I think due to the financial constraint, so still need to strategize more on this fund. And I was in UCAS at the time. We managed to kickstart many projects via this facilitation fund, and also to help the country to boost the economic activity and stimulate the economic activities. So, okay, next slide. Next, I think move on to this water structure. Yeah. And how am I going to relate the PPP model into our water infrastructure context? So before 2006, I think our pioneer here, I think Datuk Teo, the first CEO of SPAN, and also Informa market advisor for our event. Thank you, Datuk Teo here for inviting me. And for example, when I also one of the commissioner for SPAN and PAAP, and also many other water related agencies. So I know the industry well, and water resources and water services, and how this thing we can help the industry. You see, the state government privatize. Actually, the privatization is nothing new in water industry. Those days, before VISIA, the state owned the privatization agreement, like Kelantan, like Abbas, Splash. All this is a privatization agreement. So the water operator and 2019, I concluded that the final restructuring agreement, January 4th, final restructuring water agreement between Selangor with Splash, High Selangor with Splash. So all this model, but due to the VISIA Act, so governed by VISIA, and also with all the tariff setting mechanisms and the business plan, and also the threshold, the KPI, we set all the KPI. Then actually the PPP concept is there, still continue. Only thing for water operator already moved into this so-called under VCR regime, and how about the other services? Other services still have a room for or opportunities for business penetration. Okay, next slide. So these are the institutional framework from the government, federal government, policy matter. We that is more on the so-called the policy planning for the water services. Even now with CASA jurisdiction, prior to that is a CAT. So we merged in 2018 July. Government merged the ministry, NRE, and also KETA water section into CAT. So that for integrated policy management. But when it comes to water resources, still under the jurisdiction of state government, and water, again, this is a National Water Council. Prior to that is National Water Resources Council. Then we promote again to establish National Water Council. So to merge the two activity, water resources and water services, into National Water Council, make it more integrated and able to resolve the policy coordination issues. And National Water Services Fund, again, our moderator, so one of the commissioner of SPAN, Haji Atari. So this actually, this agency contribute a lot to the water services industry, and especially we SPAN set the KPI for the industry to achieve, and the tariff mechanism again is a political driven, but shouldn't be. But some of the state, I think, more than 20 years no tariff increment. But how I do it to sustain the business model. Okay, next I will share more on the. Okay, this is the chart on the diagram on the state government purview, federal government purview on water resources, water services, from the dam, from the catchment, raw water sources, to water conservation and water treatment to water distribution. So the flow. So now the business opportunity, I find that for PPP is more on the beyond water treatment and water distribution is the third part here. So more on the byproduct or other downstream activity or services. Next slide. Okay, this is the current mechanism, water reform, since 2006 until now. I think, like just now, Datuk Sri Zaini Ujang mentioned, so the financing mechanism, the alternative financing mechanism is established or going to establish for some of the activity. So it's a good move. It's a good move. So for the existing mechanism, we can see that PAAP and SPAN play a very important role. When any proposal by the water operator, so for the capex, water capex development, so SPAN will grant approval to the water operator, and PAAP will provide the funding to the water operator, and return water operator pay the lease rental to PAAP. But the issue here is the cost of fund. The cost of fund, is it competitive? For water infrastructure, if we use DE, in fact, we, from the government perspective, this is my experience, we also, government EPU also, the source of fund also get from other sources, also impose interest rate. So PAAP also impose interest rate, but the PAAP fund also from so-called source from MOF. PAAP is a government-linked company under MKD. So the question here is, are we competitive enough? If the cost of fund is too high, how are we going to attract the investor to invest into the water projects? So what is the reasonable cost of fund? Less than 3%, 2 to 3%, or maximum 4%. Okay, next slide. Okay, this activity we can see for sewage capital investment. IWK at the center. IWK is, I think, already changed to 4 ownership. Finally back to MKD. The first owner was Berjaya, then changed and changed and changed. So MKD is the owner, and the policy maker is CASA, project manager, and also CA, also handled by Indawater, because SPAN delegate the power to Indawater. So the question here, what are the activities we can do PPP, and what are the sources? Currently, there is a KWSP SMP fund. We call it a capital sewage contribution. I was the chair for this fund when I was in SPAN. So actually, it's a very noble fund committee. Actually, fund especially for the public sewage, no taker. Then why no taker? Because of the developer already winding up, and the STP or the pump house or whatever problem created in the area, the taman. So we can use this for the public health purpose. So besides that, then IWK use this SCC fund to start with some of the projects to again to maintain a good public health. Now we know how important of public health due to the COVID incident. So this fund actually, if the fund is still available, I'm sure still available, Tuan Haji, it's a huge amount. Maybe can use more, to generate more activity for the ground, because we set the guideline, we reserve a lot. So now maybe is the time to use this fund to revise the guideline a bit, so to use more, because we
And to spend
spend more, but according to the needs, critical needs. That's my suggestion. So
good idea.
Good idea. So all this experience sharing. So and public plan, O&M investment. So that is one of the source we can tap from a SCC fund. Again, this question again, Sabah Sarawak. Sabah Sarawak is not a contributor for the fund. So normally we say we just use it for Semenanjung. So unless they contribute as well. So okay, next slide. Okay, sewerage expenditure from 8 Malaysia plan, 9 Malaysia plan until 10, 11, now 12. So huge amount allocated to 10 Malaysia plan and 11 Malaysia plan. So now the 12 Malaysia plan still haven't tabled to the parliament, but I was told that the project is carried out by CASA, depends on the needs. That again, this amount for another 5 years is still very limited. Very limited. The question here is how to create more alternative funds and use what mechanism, and what is the so-called the project needs. What are the project needs for potential? Because okay, next slide. Next slide. Okay. So these are the resource recovery model. Then Shah Alam one is a water reclamation. So from the water resource recovery, we can turn into byproduct and a bioeffluent, biosolid, biogas, fertilizer. many byproducts can generate revenue for the company, the operator or the concession company. So next slide. Waste to well initiative, then turn to biomass more on the agriculture. When I was SecGen for plantation, yes, biomass a lot, especially palm oil. We have huge biomass palm trunk turned into paper pulp. This biogas integrated plant can turn into biogas and generate for energy saving and reduce the energy cost, like small hydro and another alternative. Solar, of course, now everybody talk about solar. Now the issue is how to make it more competitive with 18 cent, 19 cent. The project is not viable. And geothermal, another aspect. Okay, next. Next, yeah, this one. Okay, the room here, this integrated water management approach, we can see the NRW is one of the opportunities here for the operator or for the business to expand further, because the target of a reduction at NRW now year 2020, I think the NRW rate is still very high. Then the target 2023 reduced to 32% and further reduced to 25%, and by year 2030 to 20%. So these are the opportunity for the business to go into the PPP method. Okay, another one is urban sewage connection. 60% for 2023. Currently is 78%. So by 2030, reach 100%. So if by using DE with the rationalization, centralized treatment plant, I think not all areas are suitable for centralized treatment plant, but some of the areas still prefer not using centralized treatment plant. And also this thing, maybe next slide I want to share more issue and way forward. Okay, so in order to come up with a good PPP project for water infrastructure, we need to identify the current issues. The industry really needs to understand what are the so-called shortcomings. One of the things is, okay lah, those days lopsided concession agreement, guarantee tariff, all this thing, and compensation. Again, if no tariff increment, that then how are they, the business model, how are they going to sustain? So mismatch between the heavy investment and regulated tariff. Again, the tariff play a very important role, either it's in water services or in the IWK context. So IWK taken over by the government due to the commercial issues. So to me, now the collection rate is higher, and the tariff still remain there since 20 years ago. So that's another issue, how to sustain the business model. So are we going to increase the tariff without the political? We need strong political view lah. So, and no sustainable financial model. So why? Because of the tariff mechanism cannot be implemented. either water services or also the sewage for IWK. And lack of political will again here. We need a strong political will, because the important thing here is we enhance the water services management and also the sewage management. The management, when we enhance to be more effective, to be more efficient, so we can save cost, we can save time. So next slide, the way forward. So post-pandemic, we notice now actually it's a good opportunities for private sector to come into picture. But to overcome the obstacle here, water waste and wastewater slush shall delist or reclassify as non-hazardous waste from the schedule waste of environmental quality regulation. Hopefully, with the initiative of CASA, the combined DOE with water, so these things can be list. So from that only the list, you can expand and explore more business activity for the sewage or the water slush, even the water slush. So we are over classified maybe those two. So it's timely to get it approved. But with all the expertise from CASA, from DOE, I'm sure no issues. We are moving towards SDG goal 2030. So these are the things to strive for a balance, environment and also economic. Three bottom line principles. CASA and SPAN to establish just now. Datuk KSU mentioned also. So the alternative financing is there. So only thing is who will evaluate the PPP proposal. So my suggestion, since we established SPAN, SPAN governed by VCR. So maybe SPAN can take the lead for PPP project. Because similarly to the Suruhanjaya Tenaga Energy Commission. So from there, you come up with mechanism. Of course, you can invite UCAS as the rep for the committee, mechanism committee. Even myself also, I can help and support how to develop this mechanism so that SPAN can play more role. Haji Sari, sorry.
Yeah. I'm following you very closely.
Especially new proposal, because water industry SPAN know better. SPAN know the subject matter better in terms of policy framework, legal framework. Then the PPP framework, we tap the expertise from UCAS. Isn't it? So because I have both sides, water policy knowledge I have, and also PPP knowledge I have. All this I just share my practical experience.
Okay.
So can be done. So with this mechanism, then we identify the new grow area. So to use the mechanism to help the industry, especially the post-pandemic, the post-pandemic era. So we need to kickstart faster. No time to wait. People are suffering downstairs, they're on the ground.
Yeah,
so from project finance, just now I mentioned how low, how reasonable, 2 to 3%. Then my way to explore. And PPP will continue to be one of the key instruments in implementing government projects to reduce the government financial burden and to spill over the economic activity, and with the delist of the or reclassify the waste from the schedule waste as hazardous waste, so we can explore more activity for the water sector industry.
Okay.
Next. Okay. So when this is the part come to
Ini boleh laju kot.
it's a corporate perspective. So our vision, mission, our core value of commitment, teamwork, very Celcon crafted a clear vision for the company moving towards the DE approach or PPP approach. Okay, next. There are many projects. We cover Malaysia, Sri Lanka, so operation in 4 countries. So all PPP models already proven in overseas. So Celcon try to transfer the knowledge and expertise in PPP context to our local water infrastructure industry. Next, ni boleh laju lah. So integrated, we emphasize more on integrated end-to-end services, investment, construction. So this BOT, BOO, yeah, important. Just a minute, BOT, yeah, the slide, next slide. So BOT, full concession, how we develop Celcon context built many years ago already, invested in China, now already invested in venture. So we tap all the resources and bring it back to Malaysia and reinvest in our water infrastructure activity. So okay, next. So Langat CSTP joint venture with MMC, okay, using DE fund and asset management. Okay, next. Technology, wastewater. So with our FITech, very established in the market, more than 40 years. So can share, especially this okay, Bandar Botanic. So one of the good example. So the technology invented, so-called used by Celcon, able to help this issue in Bandar Botanic. Okay, next. So overseas concession, like just now, okay, divested in 2016. We bring back our fund to reinvest in Malaysia, and also now we are waiting to invest more. So with all this opportunity, then next slide. And the strength of Celcon, we have a strong and experienced management team, a proven technical engineering team, headed by our Chief Jamil here, and also our Tan Sri T as an owner of the company. And all this model we can explore further in a PPP Malaysia context. So with that, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tan, for his very informative presentation. I have no questions from the screen because everybody is asking for the presentation slide, Dato.
This one is so-called my ownership.
Ownership. So that's the answer. So I think probably we have to go and handle it personally with Dr. Tan on on another platform. So I think congratulations, Dr. Tan, for the presentation. I think that was a very informative and also has covered the entire industry from a person really experienced handling it, right, as a government senior officer at of course UCAS, and then later at the ministries, and until now in the Celcon. He's also a very active leading water company in the country, and also other infrastructure works. So I think with that, I think if there is any questions, I would like to get Dr. Tan to answer. However, for as a beginning, I would like to ask a question on one of your slides pertaining to the sewerage PPP. So I think what will be some the interesting enabler or the key success factor for PPP or in the sewerage sector. That is, I think, something that we should explore. I think there are thousands. I think as mentioned by Datuk KSU Zaini Ujang, Datuk Sri Zaini Ujang just now also, and lots of things that is yet to be done in the sewerage area. So can you just respond on that, Datuk?
Thank you, Dr. Ansari. So you raised a very good question. Actually, again, look at I go on the so-called type of project in sewage. So, for example, water reclamation. So you fully utilize and turn in the wastewater into a non-potable water for industry usage. So that cost saving is there for the company, and some are able to overcome the water shortage in certain areas. So that is very important. And again, the tariff mechanism to become an enabling factor, the tariff mechanism play a very important role. If you want to develop whatever model in PPP method just now, BOO, BOT, BLMT, so you need to oblige to the tariff setting mechanism. So if let's say 3-year increment, 3 years increment. So that acceptance from both sides, operator side, from various stakeholders, especially the consumer. So you need to accept that the support to help to develop a sustainable business model. Again here, the operator also need to provide the better services to the customer. So so you can increase the tariff on one hand, but on the other hand, no compromise in increasing the water service delivery or the output or the KPI to the people. So you same thing also highway, toll highway. After you increase the toll rate, after paying the toll, then you caught in traffic jam. So that is not user friendly.
Okay, good. So Dato', thank you for that. I think that gives us a very big window for us to work. I think as mentioned by the previous speaker just now in another section earlier, we need the involvement of all those attending this webinar so that they could actually talk to the politicians and influence them. I think just now Dato' mentioned about increasing the tariff, not immediately in 3 years' time. I think that is a very good way of approaching things, you know, because if you announce today and then you want to do it today, they will protest. So if we give something like that, okay, we are going to announce 3 years' time, we're going to raise the tariff, and when we raise the tariff, we are not going to tell you anymore. We leave it to the operator to do it. What do you think about it, Dato'?
Yeah, see, like our highway. I used to handle the plus restructuring highway. So I was the lead negotiator in 2011. So the 5 years no toll increment from 2011 to 2015 was headed by me and my team. So two principles here: no toll increment for 5 years, and no cash compensation from the government to the company. So that principle we should adopt to for example in water industry. For example, once you oblige with the tariff setting mechanism, another 3 years to increase, but 3 years may be too short. So because election every 4 to 5 years. So if you set 3 years, so then before the election, people said no, hold on. So better set 5 years. So after election, in 4 years, in 4 years time election. So after election, so So the government can increase. But this thing, we create awareness. We let the public know, the user know. So how they can spend hundred of dollars, ringgit, for our mobile phone usage bill, then why not you spend just 100 ringgit or less than 100 ringgit for water bill?
Okay, so I think sometimes people think that take for granted that this industry is going to survive at whatever cost. I think that is a very dangerous assumption. So I think creating awareness is something that is important. How do you think that it is the best way of getting the awareness spread out fast enough so that we could actually implement it as soon as possible? Can I get your opinion, Dato'?
Okay. So we can use the social media now. Social media to disseminate the information. Again, the YouTube can play a very important role to create awareness, and also TikTok,
Oh yeah.
the latest one. So that people are aware. So another 5 years, the tariff will be increased. So that is we make it more automatic. Again, the bottom line, the service delivery, the quality of service delivery, no compromise. So must be better than before increment.
Okay.
If no, people will.
Yeah. Okay, I fully agree with that too. That the industry has to be also prepared to make the changes in terms of service deliveries. So can I have any question from anybody? Because actually there is a very party interested from Alessandro Marmello from Italy, I think. So I think that he's listening to Dato'. I think probably he will look for Dato' after this. So I think, how about international participation in PPP? Is it encouraged or is it limited to certain countries? So?
For local, our policy, we need local participation by joint venture. So let's say a foreign company interested, so they can join venture. For example, the foreign company can become a technology provider. So I give you one example. Our Kuantan Port extension actually is a JV basis between IJM, a public listed company in Malaysia, with one of the state-owned enterprise from China, Guangxi Weibu. So that mechanism can be done in Malaysia.
Okay. So, what is it? I'm losing my screen. Okay, Dato', I didn't have any question, but I have one question to ask Dato'. Do you hear me, Dato'?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Because I can't see your the screen. I lose the screen. So I think the water industry has a very peculiar problem of wastage. A lot of wastage. I think it is also important to impress the government of the day that actually the low tariff is actually encouraging wastages to happen. What is your opinion on that, Dato'?
I agree with your view, Haji. So because again the culture, the attitude of the people, we must appreciate the water consumption. With low water consumption, then with more so-called one thing is create high awareness of water consumption pattern. Now still very high.
Yeah.
This one is our culture. That change of mindset, we need times. Another thing is our water equipment, the water labeling, all these things campaign by SPAN.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Used to get involved. The dual flush system or the shower head can save water consumption. Try to adopt that to use more, especially the new housing scheme. So when you develop the new housing scheme, so to use this water saving consumptions labeling, so to create awareness and also turn into practice for the new housing scheme. So make it mandatory, yeah, but at the same time the cost of the product must be more competitive. Must be more competitive.
So I also saw somewhere that during this COVID time, the commercial activities are quite limited. And would you think that post-pandemic will be much better, or the thing is going to drag for a long time, or do you expect PPP to be rather immediate because of overspending on the side of the government?
That's why you look at the financial constraint now. Government spend so allocated from last year 600 billion plus current announcement 200 over billion. So I think about 800 over billion. So it's a huge amount. So then that is for prihatin rakyat. But for the infrastructure development, especially water, where is the source of what? So if we don't get it ready from now, the planning stage, you see, from planning stage to implementation take at least 1 to 2 years. You talk about the NRW reduction, the package 1, pendekatan 1 and pendekatan 2. So still mingling around pendekatan 1, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tender, retender, tender, retender. Actually, it's good to make it more transparent and hopefully try to find the best bidder for the project. But again, now PPP, we need to start now. Like I suggested just now. So maybe SPAN need to take the lead.
Oh yeah.
To set out the mechanism, because you have the power under the you have the power to look into business model. So I can share some of the experience because I was in the SPAN group. I know.
Yeah, no.
Now Tuan Haji is in the SPAN as a commissioner.
Yeah. Okay, Dato', there's one question, one burning question from, I guess this is from Vietnam, because the name is Tran Huy. That's quite common name for Vietnamese. So he was asking about water management for the future. How would we create, apply and share the technology achievements in relationship with private? That means he's talking about sharing of technology between the public and the private water management companies. So I think this will conclude the Q&A session, because we have already over extra time of 15 minutes. So I think, I hope you can answer this question, and then we will probably conclude after that. Yeah, please answer.
Our delegates from Vietnam. So I think a couple of years ago I was in Vietnam water. So I also share the PPP model in wet water. So for technology provider, in fact, you can come up with a business model. You team up with the water operator, then to look into the type of services. The type of services. Let's say you want to measure the so-called the KPI on the NRW water saving. So that maybe can come out the model for water saving. So
Mhm.
if water saving is there, so we have experience. My company have experience to how to develop the model, and not only develop the model, to implement the project and monitor the project, so that all the relevant stakeholder will be beneficial.
Okay. Okay, Dato', thank you very much for the brief answer. I think we need a lot of time. We want to know more from Dr. Tan, because he has a very wide experience, and so now currently involving, I think, with private companies. I think he has more to talk to you. I think from the Q&A session, there are a lot of people raising up their hands saying that we are at your disposal in terms of financing. So I think let's see how we go about after this. But as for now, I think we have to conclude the session. I think it was a very, very interesting session that we have, in fact, exposed us to what is being practiced in the country and what are the future prospects. I think Dr. Tan has actually covered a very wide, broad, what you call it, looking from almost every perspective in terms of investment from the private, public, and also the consumer point of view. So I think that is a very, what you call that, holistic form of presentation for the purpose of PPP. I think we rarely really listen to this. We usually listen on PPP from one perspective, that is either from the investor usually. So now we are listening it right from every what you call that, every angle, from the public, from the private, and also from the people point of view. So I think I congratulate Dr. Tan for a very interesting presentation, Dato'. So I hope that we will have another few sessions with you later with other audience, inshallah. So I think I would like to pass this to Madam MC for her to take over. Faza, can you just conclude the session for us? Thank you very much.
So we take photo first with the moderator.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Datuk Teo, Datuk Teo tak ada.
Datuk Teo, are you there?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody. Okay, I've got the print screen. Okay, Datuk, maybe from your side, from Faza or the organizer, I think we have sum up the session. 15 minutes late, I think.
Right, thank you to our speaker and also our moderator for the presentation just now. So before we end the session today, on behalf of Informal Markets ASEAN Water Series, we would like to say thank you for joining us in this session. This marked the end of Regional Water Talks 2021, and we are grateful for all the support that we received from the ministry, government agencies, respectable international association, our exhibitors, and our loyal audience. We hope that you had a fruitful 4-day virtual conference, and we hope to see you very soon. Till next time, please stay safe and see you at Asia Water 2022.
Okay.
Thank you.
Terima kasih, Datuk. Thank you, Datuk.
Thank you. Thank you everyone. Thank you.